I'd like to introduce my good friend, Jonathan Pykoff. We're here to talk a little bit about real estate, lawyering, all those kind of things, which you are the expert, by the way. And so maybe tell us a little bit about you and your practice here.
Well, thank you, Michael. A pleasure to visit with you in person here. I came first to Cabo in 1989, so long before there was a four-lane highway and just a little town. And then there wasn't a lot going on 33 years ago. So I went to Mexico City just when the foreign investment law was changing to allow foreigners to go over 49% in corporations. So it was a very interesting time in Mexico. It was almost more like a closed socialist country to them starting to open up the border. And so I started working in a law firm in Mexico City, a Mexican firm. I remember their first interview was gringo, you don't speak Spanish and you don't know Mexican law, and what would you do here? And I said, well, start out, you've got American clients and you're the biggest firm in the country, and I'll just work my way up with you. So I started working with them. It was very interesting. They did a lot of foreign investment, a lot of the maquiladores on the border. I changed to then another Mexican law firm, and along the way I decided I didn't want to be just an American lawyer that knew something about Mexican law, and so I decided that it would be interesting, as long as I'm in Mexico, I would study for a Mexican law degree. The only problem to that is that a Mexican law degree is 5 years. It's a very long undergraduate degree, and then even though my law degree in the United States is as a doctorate level, because I didn't go to a high school affiliated with their system, I had to first compete in an auditorium on an exam of physics, chemistry, history, biology, and literature. So it was very interesting. I would take twice a week the subway in downtown Mexico City and take a prep class to get ready for the test. And remarkably, as bad as my Spanish was at the time, I was able to win a place at the National University. And it's a very famous one. It's down in the south of the city. They call it Universidad Nacional. So the National University, there's like 250,000 students. It's where the Diego Rivera murals are, and it's a very interesting cultural. So for me, it was a great way to see another side of Mexico. And while I was doing the 5 years in Mexican law school, I worked in different firms, and then they started talking about the free trade agreement. And being a Texas lawyer, it turned out to be at the right place at the right time, and a large Texas firm asked me to help them start their office. And I finished that. I finished my Mexican law degree. And then after that, I decided just to venture out and do my own practice, specializing on helping foreign companies and American individuals buying properties, setting up corporations, things like that. So we started the office in Mexico City, and then in 2005 I came back to Cabo to help Discovery start the El Dorado project. Supposedly I was coming back for 3 years, and now I've been back here for another 18 years. So,
well, you and I met in 2010, and immediately became friends, and I was lucky enough to be on a really good team and start enabling me to send business to you. So you and I have been working together for a very long time, and you're a valued,
thank
you know, expertise in the law. You've helped all my family. I don't think there's been a client that you haven't helped, and everybody is universally, you know, they're relieved that you're American. They love the fact that you have law practice in both U.S. and here, and it's very relatable to them. It's hard enough for them to come to Mexico and buy in a foreign country, but they have great comfort, you know, when they have the opportunity to work with you. So maybe we can talk just briefly about the process. You know, how does an American come to Mexico? I mean, everybody has all these ideas about, do you just rent? Do you not own it? I mean, if you could just clear that out.
And thank you for the kind words, because that's really how I feel my job is to make the process flow easy.
The people, you're a winner on that.
Cabo is such a beautiful place. I mean, I live here because I love, my daughter was saying after spending 1 year in the U.S. that she'd rather come back to Cabo, and I said, you don't have to explain to me. I too want to be in Cabo. I love living here. I wake up in the morning feeling like the luckiest guy in the world to be here. And so I'm really happy to sort of share that with other people when they tell me that they found something that they've liked and they're working through the pros and cons, and they might ask me questions that are not necessarily legal, but just life in Mexico, life in Cabo. I always say, and be sure when you're on the pro sides, just quality of life. It's such a beautiful place here. There's so many interesting people and friendships and activities. It's really a wonderful place. And so, when someone tells me that they're looking to buy, I try to give them the overview of what are the differences and what are the similarities, so that they can understand what the process is going to be. The first one that I always like to talk to them about is the Mexican trust, because it just is something different. And a lot of times they'll hear, fideicomiso, and then to me, I say, like, you're almost like trying to do a tongue twister. It's very easy. It's a trust, and because the Mexican Constitution doesn't allow foreigners to have fee simple title within 50 kilometers of the coastline, they came up with an arrangement where a Mexican banking institution can receive the title. You or your U.S. entity or your foreign, your family trust can be the beneficiary of the Mexican trust, and the bank will hold the property. Other than paying an annual fee of maybe $550 a year, there's really no communication between you and the bank. You don't have to ask them for permission to do anything. You don't have to contact them. There's no particular individual, in fact, at the bank that is your trustee. It's a file number, and once a year they will send you a bill, maybe, or you keep track that you should send it to them. And to give the foreign investor even greater confidence, they changed that in the law. Besides a 50-year permit, the law says you're able to apply for another permit for an additional 50 years. And so at the end of 100 years, if the law hasn't changed, and there's been, you've probably, since you've been around, there's been movements from time to time. It's just politically sensitive to our foreigners are buying our coastlines or things like that. And plus, there's the vested interest of the banks having this business. So but I wouldn't be surprised that in the next 10 years that the Constitution is changed and will allow it. In the worst case, you would be at 100 years, and you could sell it to a related entity of yours, an LLC or another. But it's not, like I try to explain to clients, this is not Hong Kong that's going back to China at the end of it. It's not a lease or anything. You have bought the property, and the bank is assisting you by acting as the trustee. If the bank goes into bankruptcy or any other event, your property is not as an asset of the bank. So, in fact, not common, but every now and then banks will even sell their portfolios. So now you'll just be paying your annual to a different bank, but your property is safe, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, we get that a lot. Well, let's talk about like time and money. So, how long does it take, and what does it cost?
Yeah. Also a very good one, because it's different than the U.S., particularly when clients want to know exactly what day or they want to fly in for a closing. And what I try to explain is the process, so they understand why does it take us so long. So a typical closing now is probably 45 days, maybe 60 days. But the reason isn't because people aren't doing anything. It's because there's complications to a Mexican system with these trusts. One is, a lot of times clients are using an LLC as the beneficiary of the trust. So if they're going to use it, frequently clients want to set up a new clean corporation, so that takes some time. And then there's a Hague Treaty about international documents, and it would be the same if a Mexican was going up to the US. There's over 100 signatories to this treaty, and what happens is the corporate documents, you're going to have to go to the Secretary of State and get an apostille stamp. And for a lot of people, if they haven't done these type of international transactions, it seems daunting. I mean, first they're thinking it's the apostles or something. And I'm explaining while it is that, there are services. So since we do this every week, we know services that can help expedite it, or companies that we can just call up and they can order it, and then they'll ship it directly to us. So we've come up with lots of ways to try to make it an easy, stressless process. Simultaneously, we're working on other parts of the transaction. You have to get a tax appraisal. You have to get certificates of no lien, certificate of no taxes, certificate that none of the HOA dues are owed. And so there's quite a few
Which
things.
just really makes their purchase more secure. All those things are contributing to how secure this purchase is.
Absolutely, which in fact is why Mexicans frequently would never buy title insurance, because they go, a notary public is an attorney. His job as the attorney, and his fee is one of the largest expenses on your closing statement, his job is to verify the title. So he will put a preventive notice which freezes the file prior to closing. We obtain a free of lien certificate, so the municipality confirms there is nothing registered on title. And then we close within that 30-day period, and then we register the deed. So we know that you're getting clean title to it. You're asking about cost too, which is also very important, because I like to prepare clients right away. I would say for most transactions, I tell clients a ballpark would be about 3 to 3.5% of your purchase price. The 2% transfer tax that goes to the municipality is obviously the largest expense. The second largest is there's a large expense from the land registry, and then the notary public is probably the third largest expense on the closing statement.
So, do you want to talk about your escrow company? That's a new addition to your list of services. It gives you an opportunity to give a little commercial about that.
Thank you for bringing it up, Michael. Well, as I've explained to others when we use them in transactions, I use our escrow company and recommend others to use our escrow company. I'm affiliated with, not because I want to use it. To me, I think I'm related, participating in it because I think it's the best in the market. So what we did is, one of my colleagues has a large title company in the United States, and we actually started using his title company at El Dorado when we started out. They were based in Phoenix, and so we would start using them. But then we wanted to have a product that's really more geared towards Latin America, because in a typical Mexican transaction, they don't use escrow.
Right.
They say, here, wire to my personal bank account the money, and then if you decide after due diligence you want to move forward, I promise I'll send it back. Right. Not the way that we would do transactions, and you and I take our responsibilities very seriously. And so with this company called TLA, what we did is we went through the process with the Texas Department of Banking. We got licensed, and we use the same technologies as the U.S. title company. So we have the same cybersecurity, we have the same insurance policies, the same auditing procedures, best in the industry practices, which we use with our team, so that we're always at the vanguard of whatever is happening, particularly now with the rise of these frauds, as you know, is very serious. So we're always trying to stay ahead in things to do. For instance, one good example. When we start out in the transaction with the Know Your Customer form, from the beginning, we ask the seller, what is your bank account? So and we make it clear, wire instructions aren't going to change during the process. And so we know that if we got a random message which said, oh, I've opened a new bank account, please send seller proceeds somewhere else, it would be automatically a red flag. And the same thing we ask the buyer, include your wiring instructions, because if there's money at the end of the transaction or you canceled your due diligence, we already have your information to send back. So we've tried to establish a lot of protocols to really prevent them. Another thing that we've done is we've set up a upload share file system. So rather than communicating wiring instructions or sensitive documents over the internet, the clients can just upload to the share file, and then it's in a secure situation so that we can control the flow of information with 100% certainty.
And I think that offers more bandwidth to your services too. I mean, you have not only the legal services, but you have the closing services too. So it never really leaves your, biosphere. So I think that's a big advantage to a client that comes to you. So how do people contact you? I mean, you have Pykoff and Associates, which is your legal, and then you have TLA, which is your escrow company. How does somebody reach you? How do they get in contact you? What can they expect from you and your service department?
Well, the probably the easiest way is just to send me an email at jpykoff@pykofflaw.com.
We'll put that up so they can reach you.
And then we'll be sure to, whether their question is about escrow services, the law firm I have. It's important to mention it's not me, although it's my name.
Team. Yeah,
I have a great team, and they work very hard. We spend a lot of time talking about customer service and good communication. We try to get out in advance of the communication to the clients and expectations so that they know what's going on. And it's really the team behind me in the law firm, the terrific team that, we have a local office here for TLA so that the Cabo transactions have escrow processors right here that are familiar, right next door, so familiar with the transaction, even though the headquarters are in Dallas. But they're here, and so they get to really have the direct relationship already with the clients. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm a big proponent of having good communication with the clients. And so they're always welcome to call me. People are welcome to contact me for just the initial questions, and sometimes it's something that I can help, it's things we might not do at the law firm, but if it's not for me, or it's not something we do, I'm happy to refer it to somebody to find them the right person to get them the answer.
Well, I know you don't really run kind of like an orthodox law center because people contact you on the weekends and you actually reply. I think that's probably, my clients that I send you are always surprised by the hour that you work after hours, you work weekends. I mean, you're not your typical 9 to 5, and even your billing is, you're very, very fair with your billing.
Thank you. I think I come from a family where my parents were real estate brokers.
All right. So
I think, I know a lot of the work happens on weekends, right? I mean, particularly in the U.S., you're touring people. Here, maybe everyone's on vacation every day.
Every day.
But particularly in the U.S., it's the weekend is when my father and mother were working the hardest. And so I'm happy to get back to people right away. These transactions are important, and I want the clients to feel that they're important to us.
Yeah, well, I've been using you for 13 years, and it's just an absolute pleasure. My clients love you. You oftentimes, in the end, become friends, and they're all not only neighbors but friends, and so. I recommend you exclusively, and I don't know of one of my clients that hasn't used you, and they've all been very, very happy with your service. So,
and that's part of to me. That's part of the joy of it. I feel like our job is to help people. The people like your clients, Michael. You've built over in Villas del Mar a community of so many wonderful people that it's a pleasure to even spend time with them. So it's a joy for us to work with them, to help them, to get to know them. Everybody has a very interesting background of how they got to Cabo, but they got here, and it's wonderful because it's nice to see how everyone's made it here to heaven.
It's like a family.
Yeah,
we are kind of like a family here.
Absolutely.
And, people, it's oftentimes they're a little skeptical because again, it's another foreign country. A lot of things are foreign to them, but I think they really appreciate the family atmosphere and how we treat our customers. So that's why you and I have been doing business for a very long time, and it's been a real pleasure, and I would recommend you. Is there any other other types of law you practice besides real estate? Is that real estate your focus? Or
particularly with life in Cabo is mostly has been development, and that. We also do corporate law, so clients from time to time need corporations,
so if somebody wants to start
contracts,
a business,
exactly. So we assist them with whatever they'll need to start their business and get up and running as a from a business
And we're
perspective.
doing one together right now, a big business
Exactly.
that's coming to Cabo, so I know that you'll help them and they'll be very happy at the end.
Yeah, thank
Is
you.
there anything else you want to, have I missed anything, or is there anything else you want to
The
share?
only thing that I would add is the Mexican culture. And I would say the Mexican people, the culture is such a welcoming place. And I think that's also mixes into what people feel so happy here. You know, when you think about the Mexican culture, you think about happy and the quality of service, the joy that so many of the people have here, for the restaurants or whether we're at the beach. Of just, it's really such a pleasure, and they make Americans feel so welcome here, and so it really is. It's easy to feel so comfortable
that's the
here.
surprise. I think that's the surprise when people get here. That's a big surprise, and they fall in love with the local community.
Right. I've never been to Hawaii, but a friend of mine told me that when he goes to Hawaii, he says, I felt like the people hated me. He said, I came to Cabo and I felt like the locals loved me. I said, well, that sounds like the perfect contrast. Not to mention you have so many days of sun here, so it's an extra bonus.
Like a real estate commercial. Have you ever considered a career in real estate? Because you're doing a very fine job with the pitch. So
thank you. Well, it is. It is a special place, and it really is the culture here that makes it so special.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for spending the time. I know you don't love doing this, but thank you for your time. It's very gracious of you.
My pleasure. I'm glad to really share of the experience, and of course certainly glad to help anyone here who decides to choose to come to the paradise of Los Cabos.
We'll continue to send you good clients.
Thank you, Michael.